We have seen some amazing changes in our time, changes that are as dramatic as the difference between the horse and wagon and the starship. If you think about it, building has not changed for 500 years. We still cut lumber and stack it together and make houses out of it. We have wasted a lot. We didn't care. We didn't have to. Now it's almost all gone. But we can learn from the past. For the horse and wagon days, I define a horse and wagon maker as anyone in any era who can't change or refuses to change and disappears. Let's look at the change from the horse and wagon to the automobile. Horse and wagon makers who didn't change died out. Those who could accept the change survived. Those who embraced the change thrived. But new knowledge had to be learned, new techniques adopted, new processes perfected, old ways had to be left behind, old habits had to be abandoned, wasteful actions had to be rejected, and fear of learning new things had to be overcome. See, the world belongs to the strong, the bright, and the fearless, and that would be me, because I had my own horse and wagon days. This is me in 1977 at my drawing table. I was thrilled to have a business in those days. I was very young, as you can see, and not too uncute. But I loved drawing, and my logo proves it, because my logo is a little man sitting at a drawing table. Can you see the resemblance? This was my horse and wagon typewriter that I used to type specifications for my houses. Now I have a laser projected keyboard that shows the keyboard on my desk, and when I'm through I just turn it off and I have the desk space available to me. This was my horse and wagon computer, my very first computer, the Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 3. I switched from the typewriter to this to type specifications, and I thought that I had arrived in the space age. But this is the Starship version. Tablets that have keyboards and word processing that completes your words for you and completes your sentences for you. That's the way to go. This was the very first adding machine that I had. An uncle who was a mathematician gave it to me to do my accounting for my new business. Now we have tablets and iPhones that have scientific computers on them that will do far more than just add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Today, if we want to sync our devices, such as our phones, all we have to do is send a signal between the laptop and the PDA and the telephone and all of our devices that we have. In my horse and wagon days, if I wanted to sync a phone, it meant I had to drop it into some water. Now here's a real horse and wagon story. I have a great-great-great-grandfather whose name was Jesse, and he lived in Gilbertown, Alabama. For those of you that are not familiar with Gilbertown, it's just a little south of the big city of Sweetwater. Now Jesse started out as a poor sharecropper. By 1908, he had become a master blacksmith. Then he added wagon repair. Then he began to build his own horse-drawn wagons for sale and developed customers as far away as Michigan. By 1910, Jesse was manufacturing his own materials. He had a horseshoe shop, an iron forge for rivets and plates, nails, nuts, bolts, and seat springs, a leather shop for seats, harnesses, and whips, a rope shop, a sawmill and carpentry shop for the wagon beds, and a wheelwright shop. Jesse would manufacture his wagons, and then he would load them onto barges where they would be transported by river. They would start out in the big city of Gilbertown and then follow the Central American waterway as far north as they possibly could, and then they would go overland until they arrived at the big city of Detroit, Michigan, which becomes very important in just a minute. Now in those days, Jesse was dating a sweet young lady named Eva who lived in the big city of Sweetwater, which was 22 miles away. And that was too far to date in person like we do now, but they wrote letters to one another. And in my family archives, we have a couple of letters that they wrote. In one in particular, she said, "Dear Jesse, folks in these parts say Mr. Ford's automobile might be important. Maybe you should take a look at it." Jesse wrote back and he said, "Dear Eva, the automobile will never amount to anything. I know what I'm doing." Well, he continued with what he was doing for a few more years and he made a lot of money. But by 1917, Ford had the idea of putting a motor on a wagon, and it created the Model T truck. The Model T truck replaced the horse and wagon. Jesse didn't want to make the change, and after a brief time, he disappeared.